off your loan earlier. At Bank Pacific, where we're open to closing your loan in a hurry.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender, credit conditions apply.
Hafa Adai Tritons, this is Chelsea St-Nicholas, president of the UOG Alumni Association. I made some of the best memories during my time as a Triton. Because of this, I have committed to giving back to the G is for Giving campaign, which will help student scholarships, programs, and activities. And I encourage you all to do the same. To make a tax-deductible donation, log on to give.uog.edu by December 31st or call 735-2957.
Viva UOG!
Sources tell Fox News President Trump has agreed to a limited trade agreement with China.
Speaking to one source who is familiar with everything that has been moving here, especially in the last 24 hours, that source tells me that a deal is imminent. This is a source familiar with the talks who also adds that it is, quote unquote, essentially done. The president teased a potential deal on Twitter. He wrote, quote, getting very close to a big deal with China. They want it, and so do we.
That's Fox's Blake Berman. The deal will reportedly roll back existing tariff rates on Chinese goods, cancel new levies set to take effect on Sunday. In exchange, China agrees to boost purchases of U.S. farm goods, grant concessions on banking, intellectual property rights, and currency. Asian markets headed higher on that news of a deal. The Hang Seng and Hong Kong up more than 2%. The Japan's Nikkei up 2.6%, and Dow futures up 133 points. Police in New Jersey say they recovered 5 guns, including an AR-15 style rifle and a shotgun following Tuesday's deadly attack on a Jewish market in Jersey City. They also found a pipe bomb in the suspect's van. State Attorney General Gabir Grewal.
The evidence points towards acts of hate. I can confirm that we're investigating this matter as potential acts of domestic terrorism, fueled both by anti-Semitism and anti-law enforcement beliefs.
At least one of the suspects is linked to the Black Hebrew Israelites, a group that's often described as one that hates whites, Jews, and police. The attackers fatally shot a police officer and 3 civilians before cops killed them. And former NBA Commissioner David Stern undergoes emergency surgery for a brain hemorrhage. 77-year-old Stern collapsed Thursday in New York. America's listening to Fox News.
In life, we all have the ability to make a difference, to make an impact on someone's life. As we look around us, time never stops, but we are filled with endless moments of gratitude. The art of giving is incorporated in so many different ways. At Guam Gift Baskets, we want to be able to express your gratitude and love to those who you care about. Show your appreciation with a gift made with love this holiday season. Visit our website at guamgiftbaskets.com. See the smiles, touch their hearts, feel the experience.
Are you ready for some football? The Ray Gibson Show has got your fix every day with the Points NFL Pick'em contest. Get the latest updates as we check out the past week's performance and break down the upcoming action. Get your game on by calling the hotline at 888-TALK or sound off on Facebook Live at thepoint.gu. League members get a chance to win some awesome weekly prizes with a shot for your choice of a new GTA phone. The NFL Pick'em contest is brought to you by Current Guam with special thanks to GTA.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
Yeah. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Thus saith the founders of our country back in 1792, as you were, 1791. They call it the Second Amendment. And on the Tall Tales talk show, which, by the way, is the top-rated afternoon FM radio talk show in the Western Pacific, if not in the entire world. We always start off the program with a reading of the Second Amendment, just to remind ourselves that our rights don't come from the government. They come from a source greater than the government, and those rights are reflected in our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. So we have the right to freedom of speech, freedom of religion, etc. When it comes to freedom of speech, we really exercise that right here on Tall Tales, as do many of those of you out there in our international radio listening audience who use 888-8255 to call a program, or if they're in the U.S. mainland, 671-888-8255 to call a program, or if they're outside the North American numbering plan, they put a 1 in front of that to call the program. And if they're not calling the program, a lot of them are making comments here on Facebook, which I appreciate and ordinarily incorporate into the context of the program. So I know that I know that I'm not talking to dead air out there, because I've already got a caller on the line, and it looks like the real Joe Cruz has opened up the Jimmy line right at the very beginning of the program. Is that right, real Joe Cruz?
That is correct.
Yeah, good afternoon, Jimmy. Hello, Jimmy.
Must have dropped.
Well, he looks like he's... okay. No, there's no Jimmy. All right. Maybe he was just testing his phone to see if he could make your phone ring, real Joe Cruz. Okay, so no Jimmy. There being no Jimmy today, or at least at this instant, we'll go now to Jemmy Ekotny. The real Joe Cruz was a little slower on the draw today.
Yeah, because I was answering the phone at the same time.
He was answering. The real Joe Cruz can multitask, but a lot depends on the timing. Okay, so we have Jimmy again. Jimmy's second call of the day. Perhaps he'll be more loquacious this time around than he was with the first call. Good afternoon, Jimmy.
Jimmy.
Afternoon.
Hey, we got 2 Jimmys on the line now. We went from 0 Jimmys, now we've got 2.
Well, sorry, as I said, I don't want to slow you down. Keep rolling.
Okay, go ahead, Jimmy. I guess you turned your radio off, so now we're down to 1 Jimmy.
Yeah, would you like to hear a Guam story?
I always have to express a few caveats when you offer to tell a story, Jimmy. First of all, remember we are on the air. Second of all, remember there is a Federal Communications Commission. Third of all, the Federal Communications Commission has some restrictions about what can be said on the air. So taking those things into consideration, what do you want to tell me?
Just once upon a time, on Guam, one of our beloved fellow Guamanians decided it was nice to smoke ice. And so he started smoking ice. And then he got caught by Mandania Task Force. And then he went before the judge. He said, Your Honor, I have 2 wives and 8 children. You need to let me go. So the judge said, okay, go out and take care of your children. Okay, you're on felony release. Don't do any more felons. So then he walked out the door and said, thank you, Judge. And then that ice was so nice. He just wanted to get some more. And he only had his legs, his 2 legs. So he went to his cousin's house, and he knew where his cousin kept the keys to his car. So he got the cousin's keys, got the cousin's car, drove up there and did it door, got some more ice. And he was keep on driving, keep on driving. He tried to make a little money. Nothing wrong with that. So he keep on driving, and he made a mistake. He crashed into a telephone pole, and then the police came, and they took him to the jailhouse, and he had to go before the judge again. And the judge said, "Hey, you're a felon on felon release. What you doing back here in front of me?" He said, "Well, Your Honor, I got 2 wives and 8 children." And the judge said, "Well, how many relatives you got?" And the defendant said, "Well, I got some cousins, I got some half-brothers, I got some half-sisters. I got more than the 12-man jury of my peers." And the judge said, "Well, okay. I sentence you to time served, 33 months, time suspended. You're free to go." And what did the defendant say as he walked out the door?
I give up, Jimmy. What did he say?
"Thank you, Judge Sokola."
That's a long joke to get to that punchline, Jimmy. I guess you're perhaps suggesting that Judge Sokola is a little more lenient than folks over there in the Jimmy line would like to see. So a little bit of wisdom from Jimmy's to start the program, and from there we go. Let's go back to Jimmy Cotney. So here we go. And once again, we start out with the Daily News. The Daily News, true to form, runs an editorial or puts something on what it purports to be its editorial page. And it says at the end of this one, it says, USA Today's editorial opinions are decided by its editorial board, which operates by consensus and reaches its opinions independently from the newsroom and any other part of USA Today or its parent company, Gannett. Most editorials are coupled with an opposing view, a unique USA Today feature. Well, there's a unique Guam Daily Post feature called the local editorial that the Gannett publication here doesn't seem to be interested in. So there's not a whole lot of sense here spending a lot of time on the Daily News editorial. It's from Gannett editorial board. It knocks President Donald Trump. So, you've seen him one, you've seen them all. You probably, if all you're buying the Daily News for is for the editorial content, buy one at the beginning of the month and then just read the same one every day, and you won't be missing out on much. Okay, then we go from there to the Post. And the Post says 2 shootings in Manila later, the public still doesn't know what's going on. When 2 people are shot in Manila, one fatally off the same stretch of Route 15 over a span of weeks, the public can't be kept in the dark. Even when police don't have all the answers and they're still trying to piece together pieces of the puzzle, they must say what the public should look out for, or what at the very least they're trying to sort out. Are the shootings related or not related? Are the police looking at a pattern? Are these crimes random? Were the victims targeted? Are there any additional clues that might help solve the cases? Did any video surveillance camera capture a vehicle or movement that might offer clues? A man in his 40s was killed in the latest shooting just after 2 a.m. Wednesday. Bloodstain was left on the street along Fausto Pangilinan Street, a quiet neighborhood just off Route 15, where some of the houses are decked with outdoor holiday lights. Police are not releasing the man's identity, even when his family knows of the death. All police said was that this was a death investigation. The fatal shooting on Wednesday, just before dawn, is only about 4 miles from the Route 15 area where a pregnant woman, Katerina Pito, was shot while driving home around 1:50 a.m. on December 13. On December 13? What's today, Real Joe Cruz?
December 13th, sir.
That's what I thought. It must have been a different December 13.
Yeah.
Was it last year? No, December. Well, anyhow, that's what the story says. So getting out the blue pencil here, I don't think it happened on December 13. After she had picked up a cousin from a graveyard shift at work. She and her unborn baby survived, but she had to spend days in the hospital while a bullet fragment was lodged in her face. GPD spokesman Paul Tapau did confirm recently that while police are investigating a shooting reported in Jigo, also off Route 15, it isn't believed to be related to the shooting in Mangilo that left Pito with gunshot wounds. If the police don't see a connection between the two recent shootings in Mangilo, they ought to tell the public. If they're not sure, they also owe the public that candor. People are on edge over the recent spate of violence on the island. The role of our peace officers is not only to try and solve cases, they also need to arm the public with information that will help raise their awareness and keep them from unnecessarily worrying if shootings are believed not to be random attacks. The Guam Police Department needs to treat island residents as partners who need to be informed. Silence can only add to the fear of the unknown. So I think it just comes naturally with working for the government. We're not going to answer that question, or it's a personnel matter, or, you know, it's, as Janela Carrera said not too long ago, we're barred from talking about it. All of these things, of course, are just easy ways of camouflaging what you're not doing. So I tend to agree with the Post here. They owe it to the public to say something about all of these situations, not, well, we can't talk about that because it's still under investigation. So it isn't the best editorial I've seen in a while, but it does pass the Blue Star threshold. So today's Blue Star, Guam Post. Thank you, Guam Post. Now, let me see what I've got in my calendar here today. If I've even, yes, I do have a calendar. And let's see, I got to up the tally here. Guam Post, that takes the Guam Post up to 157. PDN 55. Candid News 2. Okay, so in light of the Christmas season, we've been doing the 12 Days of Christmas for the last few days. And this is an article that I've got from a legal website called Find Law. And Find Law is kind of after my own heart because they like to use plays on words, double entendre, and sarcasm just as much as I do. So the title of this series is How the 12 Days of Christmas Run Afoul of the Law. A fowl as like a partridge or a turtle dove. Okay, so on the first day of Christmas, we started out and we found out that if your true love gives you a partridge in a pear tree, that might not be such a good deal if you live in California, because California has a lot of agricultural restrictions, and California would, if your pear tree came from the eastern part of the United States, California might look on that pear tree as contraband or a controlled substance. If it were a partridge in a marijuana tree in California, it'd probably be okay. Okay, and then on the second day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 2 turtle doves. Well, and at least in the UK, turtle doves are on the red list. That's from the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds. And we all know that importing endangered species is frowned upon by federal law. And now we also know that importing unendangered species like gamecocks is against federal law. And then on the third day of Christmas, my true love gave to me French hens. And the article says, now we break the eggs. If these are good laying hens, you will walk right into the morass that is a current California versus Missouri interstate egg import-export law fight. I haven't gone to the website to find out why California and Missouri are fighting over importing eggs, but I will for Monday. Then today, my true love gave to me 4 calling birds. Now the explanation there is the original word might have been coley birds. Coley as in what color is coal, Real Joe Cruz?
Black, sir.
Uh-huh. So what color would you say a coley bird is?
Probably black.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So number 4 could be 4 blackbirds or 4 coley birds. So we'll come back tomorrow. No, we won't come back. The Real Joe Cruz and I are going to go into, talking about black, we'll be wearing black because we'll be in mourning for the next couple of days because no tall tales. But we'll be back here on Monday. So on Monday, we'll talk about 5 golden rings. Okay, so on the next item on the card here, very good, Real Joe Cruz, yes. The next item on the card is more of United States of America versus Gods and Arrows. And this to me is some of the more important news that's coming along in quite a while, because there are so many different ways that it can be looked at, and we've talked about a lot of them. You know, one of them is what we would refer to as the nativist viewpoint. Now, nativist is a word you have to be a little bit careful of, because you could be a citizen of, you could be born and raised in Chicago of Polish parents. That doesn't take much of an imagination. And you could still be a nativist, because in political speech, a nativist is one who doesn't want to see immigration from foreign countries. And it doesn't have anything to do with indigeneity. So that's a little bit difficult to juggle here on Guam, where some would say that Chamorros are the native people of Guam. Well, you don't have to be Chamorro to be a nativist. You could be a nativist if you say things like, we don't need those rascals from off island coming in here and telling us how to order our own affairs. We can handle it ourselves. That would be a nativist raf. So being a nativist, back in the 19th century, there was a political party in the United States. I don't remember the official name for it, but it was a nativist party, and they were known as the Know-Nothings. They were anti-immigrant, anti-foreigner, etc. So you could adopt the nativist attitude here in Guam. You know, we have our own government. We know how to govern ourselves here. We don't need necklace legislators in Washington telling us what's good for us. So just butt out, fellas, and leave us alone. That's one possible viewpoint. Another possible viewpoint is what I would call the federalist viewpoint. You've heard me say before, we don't have a federal government anymore. We had a federal government at one time. Now we have a national government. when the United States started out, the name of, when we talked about what the government could do, we would say the United States can, because we had a government where the states had delegated some of their authority to the national government, to the central government, to carry on certain things that didn't lend themselves very well to being done by the individual states. So we had a federal government. We don't have that anymore. We have a national government where too much of the power is centered in the national government, which continues to grab more and attempts to treat the states as 50 administrative districts. So if that's true for the states, it's true in spades for the territories, where the national government sees that we don't have to pay any attention to those dudes out there in the territories, because we've got Article 4, Section 3 of the Constitution, and Article 4, Section 3 says, the Congress shall have the power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory of the United States. So the courts have interpreted that as saying that Congress has great power to deal with the territories. They don't have to look for an interstate commerce peg or anything like that to hang their legislation on. So they feel very comfortable, apparently, in legislating local criminal law, which ought to be a function for local government. But as badly as we might feel about the national government regulating cockfighting here, our uppermost house in our legislative branch, they call themselves the Supreme Court, has voided criminal laws in the states dealing with abortion and turned that into a national mandate. So there's that way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is to say that, well, we've been doing this for 500 years or something. We learned from the Spanish. It's so deeply culturally embedded that even if it's not such a good idea for Rhode Island or Massachusetts, you ought to take into consideration the local situation and allow us to continue a long-standing tradition. That's another way to look at it. Another way to look at it is to say, well, if it is a long-standing tradition, first of all, is it really part of the culture? And if it is it a part of the culture that we've outgrown, something that needs to be changed? That's another way of looking at it. Let's see, that's The Sting. The song called The Entertainer from The Sting. I guess that's appropriate. The Entertainer?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for the compliment, Real Joe Cruz.
A diamond ring turns into a black pearl and hangs shimmering in the sky.
Join 93.3 The Point for a spectacular celestial event. On the evening of December 26th, a rare solar eclipse will take place just before sunset.
We see the sun's atmosphere, normally not visible.
Most of the sun will be blocked during the eclipse, leaving only a ring of fire visible, and we have the best seats and the safest way to watch it.
It's one of the great wonders of the solar system.
Join us at the Point Coffee Lounge at the Sheraton Laguna Guam Resort from 4 to 6 p.m. on December 26th. The first 100 guests will receive a pair of Eclipse viewing glasses, a complimentary glass of iced tea, and a coupon good for discounts at Sheraton's Surfers Point Bar or La Cascada Buffet Restaurant. Join us for the Point's 2019 Eclipse Viewing Party, December 26th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the beautiful Sheraton Laguna Guam Resort. Brought to you in part by Sheraton Laguna Guam Resort, Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, and your Sky-watching friends at 93.3 The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Yeah, so these are some different ways of looking at the new national law that makes cockfighting and almost anything relating to cockfighting a crime in the territory of Guam. Another Yeah, we're back. We're still on the card. Thanks, Real Joe Cruz. I didn't forget. Yeah. Another way of looking at it is this: from maybe a more humanistic standpoint, what responsibility do human beings have with respect to other forms of life here on the planet? Do humans have a responsibility to not treat mammals or avians in a cruel fashion? I think if you were to ask most people, they'd say, yeah, you can't be cruel to an animal. What are you doing with that chicken back there, Real Joe Cruz?
Treating it nice, sir.
Thank you very much. So I don't know that humans are hardwired to be kind to animals, if this is something that's generational or cultural. But I think most people would agree that if your dog angers you, you can't kick the dog. Or you could, but you know, it's not something you'd want everybody to know that you kick your dog. So there seems to be something like a consensus that we shouldn't be cruel to animals, even animals that we use for food, like cattle. You know, there are rules, there are conventions when it comes to slaughtering cattle. You're not supposed to inflict any more pain in the cattle than necessary. And as I mentioned the other day, there's a group called the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals that really have gotten into this and have made an awful lot of people's lives more difficult for people who deal with animals. Dr. Tom Poole told us a little bit about some of the dealings that he'd had with PETA in an earlier job that he had. So I'm going to just tell you how I feel about it. I don't think we should be mean to animals. We should not be cruel to animals. If an animal has to die in order for us to have steak on the table, we should do it in as humane a manner as we can without, going to ridiculous extremes. You don't have to spend $200 to euthanize a steer. But I think as a general principle, civilized societies are not cruel to animals. And I suppose some would say, well, okay, now you're saying that in those countries that have bullfighting, they're not a civilized society? Well, I'm not going to go that far, but there is something troubling about things like bullfights, dogfights, cockfights, etc. If there's a general agreement that humans should not be unnecessarily cruel to animals. And one of the things that you'll find if you study some of the PETA stuff is that man, and when I say man, what I really mean is they, right? I'm not talking about people of any one of the several sexes that we've identified recently, including those that are born with XY chromosomes. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is humankind, the human race. Members of the human race should not be unkind to animals, meaning, and part of the meaning there is that animals should not be used strictly for humans' entertainment. Now, I really felt bad when we found out that when it was announced no more Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus because of the way the animals in the circus are treated. We're just using them for our own recreation. Tom Poole had an interesting gloss on that yesterday. He said that he thinks that's unwise because the only way that a lot of people will be able to see some of these animals, tigers and lions and zebras and elephants, is at a circus. And by being educated in that manner, they might develop a certain feeling for animals that would be salutary. I think that's pretty much what Tom said. So, obviously, I would have to say, yeah, some entertainment is, some using animals for some kinds of entertainment is probably not to be seen as cruelty. We've all seen the dog. You take a tennis ball and you throw the tennis ball and the dog will chase it down and bring it back to you. And it's fun. It's entertaining to see the dog do that. I kind of think it's entertaining for the dog too. So these are not easy questions to sort out. But when it comes to taking two roosters, strapping sharp knives or picks to their ankles, holding them up one to the other to anger them at each other, and then turning them loose in a small pit until one of them kills the other one with those sharp knives for entertainment, and so that gods and arrows can place bets on which chicken is going to kill the other chicken. I just have to confess that it doesn't seem right to me. It doesn't seem like the kind of thing that I would want to be identified with, and I'd be just as happy if we didn't do that on our island anymore. I mentioned yesterday that this outfit that has come to the island, what's the name of it? It's the Animal Wellness Foundation, put a full-page colored ad in the Post yesterday. So this outfit is obviously media savvy. Here's what the ad looks like. This outfit is obviously media savvy and probably had a important role in getting this cockfight ban included in the Farm Bill, a little lobbying effort. So I think what we have to do is we have to wonder how we would like it, what would our reaction be if we start seeing articles in the national press, like the New York Times just loves to run stories about how many snakes we have here. So if we started seeing articles in the national and international press, Guam government rebels against animal cruelty law. So that, the slant of all of these stories would be, hey, those folks out on Guam are really cruel to animals. They take chickens and strap sharp knives to their ankles, and they put them in a ring and let them kill themselves, and then they bet on which animal will kill the other animal. I don't know that is the kind of thing that will help any of us here, except those that profit directly from the cockfighting industry. I don't see it as a positive for the island at all. So we have some interesting activities on the part of our local government. My two favorites are Amanda Shelton and Sabina Paris. When this law passed a year ago, and we had a 1-year warning. When the law passed, Senator Amanda Shelton introduced a resolution saying enforcing this law will be our lowest priority, which was a really nice way to pander to the cockfighting industry, because what difference is it if the federal law is our lowest priority or the highest priority? It's not ours to enforce. So it was words on paper, and it gave Amanda Shelton the ability to go to a stump speech and say, any cockfighters out there, I'm on your side. Here's my resolution. Now, and the same thing goes for Sabina Paris. Yesterday we talked a little bit about crocodile tears. And Sabina Paris, for Tall Tales purposes, was seen crying crocodile tears as she introduced her 37-page bill to make cruelty to animals a really serious offense, going so far as to criminalize bestiality. It's really cracking down on cruelty to animals. So I suspect there would be folks out in the community who would say, yeah, okay, I kind of like that. It's the kind of thing that I would expect a senator to do. So Sabina is really tough on those who would be cruel to animals. Except for one thing. She exempted cockfighting from her bill. So cruelty to animals is just a horrible, terrible thing. Unless the animal that is being treated cruelly happens to be a rooster, and the cruelty happens to occur where people can bet on which rooster will kill the other one. Then Sabina says, no harm, no foul, crying her crocodile tears over these poor animals who have to suffer cruelty. So a couple of other things to add into the mix here. We don't have a cockfighting board anymore, and as I recall the news from last year, the cockpit board had not licensed any cockpits, and the Department of Revenue and Taxation was not attempting to collect any taxes from any cockfights. So why are we doing this? We aren't even trying to regulate it. And then I have a story here from PNC News. Cockfighting board without any members as ban approaches. Cockfighting on Guam has been a hot topic this week, according to former cockpit license chairman Earl Garrido. His term expired in March, leaving the island with no official organization responsible for the sport. Cockfighting on Guam, let's see. In a phone interview, Garrido said his term as chairman of the board expired in March, and even then it was only a board consisting of himself and 2 other members. The board has not had one single member since because everyone knew the federal ban was coming. Though it's not clear which federal agency will enforce the ban, it's confirmed that it's the lowest priority for local government law enforcement. I talked about that. Nice job, Amanda. Way to pander. Wayne Pacell, one of the leaders of the Animal Wellness Foundation, was interviewed on News Talk 57, and he warned violators about the severity of the new cockfighting law. It doesn't just prohibit organizing cockpits, it also prohibits participating in the fights, the handling of the animals, owning animals for fight purposes, attending a cockfight, bringing a minor to a cockfight. Every count can be up to 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. So, no more, there's nobody on the cockpit licensing board. And then Lulian Guerrero, when the bill passed, came out with the obligatory pandering. Well, that's Washington. They never asked us. It's part of our culture. And then they're just telling us we can't do it. But as the effective date approaches, Lou got the mayors together and said, hey, you guys, don't ask me for a permit to hold a cockfight during your village fiesta because I'm not going to issue any more of those. So no cockpit licensing board. The governor's not going to issue any more permits. The only thing we have is government officials doing the pandering. And, of course, one of the arguments that comes up all the time, well, it's part of our culture. And don't those people back in Washington understand that we've been doing this for a long time and it's part of our culture, et cetera, et cetera? And my sense is that the people that voted on the Farm Bill probably aren't very much aware of cockfighting on Guam. And anybody back there, it's not that people back there aren't aware of it. It's that there are groups like this animal rights organization that are completely aware of it. And they don't like it. And they're going to do everything that they can to stop it. So what has our local government done since the bill passed a year ago? Nothing, except kind of encourage disobedience. And encouraging disobedience kind of from the standpoint, well, everybody knows that we really like cockfighting out here. It's part of our culture, and we've been doing it for a long, long time. Well, there's a story in the Post and another one on PNC kind of rebuts that. I'm looking at the Post headline survey. 60% of Guamanians favor cockfighting ban. 9 of 10 Guamanians want local animal cruelty laws strengthened. And 6 out of 10 support the federal ban of cockfighting, according to a local survey. The Animal Wellness Foundation and Animal Wellness Action yesterday released results of a poll on animal cruelty and cockfighting. The federal law passed last December that makes cockfighting illegal goes into effect on December 20. Market Research and Development conducted the poll, which included 400 residents over a 2-week period that ended December 12. The poll indicated as follows. About 89%, or 9 of 10 Guamanians, are concerned about the mistreatment of animals on Guam. About 90% believe animal cruelty laws on Guam should be strengthened. Only 7% of Guamanians have been to a cockfight in the last year. Roughly 21%, or 2 of 10 Guamanians, favor cockfighting, while 60% oppose it. About 52% of residents are not aware of the federal ban. When it comes to the federal ban, 60% favor the ban, 25% oppose it. Our poll results reveal that Guamanians are concerned about animal cruelty on Guam in overwhelming numbers, said Jay Merrill, president of Market Research and Development, Inc. Nearly everybody polled wants to see Guam's animal cruelty laws strengthened. In addition, a solid majority oppose cockfighting and support the federal ban. So, this being the case, and assuming the reliability of the poll, we don't have any reason not to, what is this? Well, it's part of the culture, and everybody knows that it's, it should be left alone. So it's not like, it's not like we're trying to ban baseball in Santo Domingo or something like that. According to this survey, it's just a small number of people that are really advocates for cockfighting, and it may be that they are the ones who are making such noise as has been made. So I'm going to take a short break here. Jimmy wants to ride this Ferris wheel for a second time, so go ahead, Jimmy.
Oh, yeah. Let me turn the radio down. Okay, as far as animal rights and PETA and cockfighting and Koreans eating dog and Filipinos eating dog, okay, I used to live in Korea, and the way they prepare the dog, they hang the dog over a bridge and hit it with sticks to make more adrenaline in the dog. They terrify the dog. And I worked in the slaughterhouse in Iowa. And I was the first one on the floor. Yeah, I've killed animals. Never killed a person. But really, I just do not understand. What is the attraction of seeing 2 chickens fight with each other to the death? It's terrible. Honest to God, that is wrong. Okay, chickens, they go, okay, right here. I live in the jungle. We got a bunch of cats around here. We got some chickens around here. And the chickens killed 3 kittens. Chickens killed 3 kittens. And the chickens come right here and eat the cat food. So anyway, I'm not Korean. I'm sure as hell not Guamanian. and nor am I the F word or the P word. But if I had to start spouting adjectives about people who enjoy watching chickens kill each other, I think it's wrong. Make it simple. It's wrong to watch chickens kill each other. It's wrong to help chickens kill each other. Something's wrong with that.
Okay, Jimmy. Well, we have Jimmy's ruling on the subject. We got to take a short break, and I'll come back to Jimmy's ruling after that. Thank you, Jimmy.
Connecticut water treatment customers don't keep coming back. They're satisfied the first time. That's right. Connecticut non-electric water treatment systems take care of your water problems, and you won't need to keep calling us for repairs. Join the list of satisfied Connecticut customers who purchased their non-electric water systems years ago and are still enjoying clean, conditioned water without any hassles from timers or circuit boards.
American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
GRMC's cardiology department treats most complex heart problems. In our catheterization lab, cardiologists use imaging equipment to treat clogged arteries that can cause heart attacks or heart failure. We perform balloon angioplasty, stenting, and other life-saving cardiac procedures. If you suffer from a heart condition, have your provider refer you to GRMC's cardiology clinic at 645-5500. GRMC, where patients are partners.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Yeah, well, Jimmy has come on the air and ruled, so I don't know if there's anything more to be said about cockfighting. Jimmy finds it cruel and doesn't understand why anybody would want to watch two chickens kill each other. Took Jimmy a little while to get there. He had to lay a foundation for his rap, but he did it. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more, but let me just see who's saying what on Facebook this morning. I think we may have some competition for Andrew, the poet laureate of Tall Tales. Listen to this. They get up every morning before the sun comes up, throw a lunchbox into a pickup truck. A long, hard day sure ain't much fun, but they got to get started if they want to get it done. They set their mind and roll up their sleeves. They're known as the people of the H2Bs. I use them every day to manicure my lawn, and I keep them employed from dusk till dawn. I don't pay very much, and they do what I say, and I keep their dreams alive with fake promises that they can stay. And it crosses their mind that they can they can report. And if it crosses their mind that they can report, I remind them I hold the power to deport. Yeah, I'm the boss, and I sign bills into law. And that's because, unlike Ray, I drew the long straw. I have the biggest checkbook, and I own your land, your pension, and payroll. So I hope you understand that if you want to make a life, if you want to win, you won't get anywhere unless you're in. Nice job, Ishmael Liz. Another striker for the position of Poet Laureate of Tall Tales. And then I got another one here. This is from Joe Cruz. This is you, right, real Joe Cruz? Joe Cruz, some people love the cocks, but some don't want them in their neighborhood because they make smells and crow a lot. Plus, they spar in the front yard while stroking their cocks. Yeah. That's not you, huh, real Joe Cruz? That's another Joe Cruz. A little louder, please.
No.
Yeah, I want to get your denial on the record here, real Joe Cruz. Yeah, okay. And then Nate Horn again, if the bestiality bill passes, I'm leaving. Yeah, you know, that Sabina Paris, man, she's really cracking down on animal cruelty. Okay, so we've got just 3 minutes here going up to the big halftime show that you all look forward to so ardently. So we've been spending a lot of time talking about cockfighting, and I would pose this question to you: what do you do when you have a long-standing cultural practice that seems to be at cross purposes with the way business is done nowadays? And I'm going to give you an example that I'm not going to spend much time on today, but we'll be coming back to it from time to time. Let's take the word meritocracy. Meritocracy means, if we're talking about a meritocratic government, it means that jobs in the government are provided to those best able to handle those jobs. So if we're looking for a widget plucker, we have means of looking at a person's credentials, his experience as a widget plucker, perhaps a test to see how well they can pluck widgets, etc., so that every widget plucker we hire, we're able to say, we went out and found the best. That would be a meritocracy. Now, is that at cross purposes with, and I'll tell you the other half of it when we come back from that big halftime show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
This is a Fox News alert, an abrupt end to the debate. I'm Carmen Roberts.
I have just witnessed the most Bush League stunt I have ever witnessed in my professional life.
Republican Congressman Doug Collins erupts in anger after the chair of the House Judiciary Committee suddenly ends the fiery debate over the articles of impeachment and delays the historic vote. Chairman Jerry Nadler shutting down the marathon 14-hour session shortly before midnight.
This selfish president withheld the aid for his own personal gain.
California Democrat Eric Swalwell says President Trump must be held accountable for holding back military aid to Ukraine as pressure to open investigations on Democrats, including former Vice President Joe Biden. A vote by the full House on articles of impeachment is expected next week. On Capitol Hill, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
A limited trade deal with China's in the pocket, according to sources close to the matter. The agreement reportedly rolls back tariff rates and cancels those set to go into effect on Sunday.
These would have raised prices significantly on consumer goods like electronics and taken a bite out of American pocketbooks. Republican Senator Marco Rubio isn't so sure. This is his tweet. White House should consider the risk that a near-term deal with China would give away the tariff leverage needed for a broader agreement on the issues that matter the most, such as subsidies to domestic firms, forced tech transfers, and blocking U.S. firms' access to key sectors.
Fox's Leland Vittert. A stunning victory in Britain for Boris Johnson's Conservative Party. The party crushing the opposition Labour Party in Thursday's national election will give Johnson the power to push Brexit through Parliament. President Trump tweeting his congratulations to Boris Johnson on his great win. America's listening to Fox News.
Rain. It's nature's way of cleansing the earth. Yet by the time that rainwater makes its way to your home, it may not be exactly the same as nature created it. A Connecticut water treatment system can improve the quality of the water you and your family drink and use throughout your home, so you can be sure your water is clear, clean, and fresh, just as nature intended it to be. Connecticut, for refreshing ideas on water.
American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
Did you know that home loan rates have plunged again? Would you like to take advantage of these lower rates to help lower your monthly payments? Refinancing doesn't have to be for another 30 years. It can be for 10, 15, or 20 years. It's up to you. Reduce your monthly payments. Pay off your loan earlier. At Bank Pacific, where we're open to closing your loan in a hurry.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Credit conditions apply.
New Zealand says it will send out a dive team Saturday to search for a body that's believed to be in the waters off the volcanic island that erupted Monday, killing at least 16. Crews recovered 6 of the 8 missing bodies from the island early Friday. The U.S. tests a missile previously banned under the arms control treaty that President Reagan signed with Russia.
The land-based intermediate-range ballistic missile blasted off from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California and splashed down in the Pacific. Flying more than 310 miles, a range previously banned under the INF treaty with Russia, which the Trump administration scrapped over the summer. At the Pentagon, Defense Secretary Mark Esper was asked if the missile would be deployed to Europe anytime soon.
Once we develop intermediate-range missiles, and if my commanders require them, then we will work closely and consult closely with our allies in Europe, Asia, and elsewhere with regard to any possible deployments.
At the Pentagon, Lucas Tomlinson, Fox News.
U.S. and NATO allies accuse Russia of already testing the missile. A surprising discovery about a man caught stealing deliveries from Amazon in Florida.
Police near Tampa were trying to find out who stole nearly $900 worth of stuff intended to be delivered to people from Amazon. Unlike the now infamous porch pirate scenario, the items never seemed to get delivered, and Amazon's records showed them as missing. That's when police discovered Amazon driver Ozken Rodriguez Okur Jr. was allegedly pocketing the items from the truck. That included one of those internet-connecting security cameras and $250 in gift cards that Okur is now accused of using on his own Amazon account. In Miami, Eben Brown, Fox News.
And Republican governor of Kentucky, Matt Bevin, lost his re-election bid last month and now shocking the state with a slew of pardons. Louisville Courier-Journal says he's issued 428 pardons. This is Fox News.
Hey, what's that?
A Subway Big Hot Pastrami.
My Big Hot Pastrami?
No, my Subway Big Hot Pastrami. Get your own.
Get your own Subway Big Hot Pastrami. Tender, juicy beef on freshly baked sunflower crunch bread, topped with pickles and mustard. Finish off your meal with all new seasoned potato wedges, baked to perfection right in the restaurant. Both available for a limited time only. Subway, make it what you want.
Half a day. This is Melanie Mendiola.
And this is Ricky Hernandez. We're with the Guam Economic Development Authority.
And we're both alumni of the University of Guam. We're calling on our fellow alumni to make an investment in Guam's future by contributing to the G is for Giving campaign. With your donation, you are giving more students the opportunity to graduate, making Guam a better place.
To make a tax-deductible donation, log on to give.uog.edu before December 31st or call 735-2957 for more information.
Viva UOG!
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So here we are, back from that big halftime show that we've all come to know and love so well. We've been spending the first part of the program talking about cockfighting, and I have to tell you that Jimmy has called in and ruled, and Jimmy is not in favor of cockfighting. So I don't know if that'll be, maybe we don't have to talk about it anymore. But just in case we do, we have a very distinguished doctor of veterinary medicine on the line who has shed a lot of light on this matter since it first came into the news. So good afternoon, Dr. Tom Poole.
Good afternoon, Judge. Thank you for indulging me on this. I'll try to make this the last one. But the question I have, and again, I'm playing devil's advocate here because, as you know, I'm no proponent of cockfighting, but I hope you can explain to me why this federal law would be enforced when, the feds aren't enforcing any of these states that have chosen to allow the cultivation and sale of marijuana, which is still, against federal law. What keeps us from being a sanctuary territory for cockfighting, for example? Why are some things enforced and not others?
That's a really good question, Tom. I think part of it is the structure of the statutes. The cockfighting ban is, in no uncertain terms, a criminal law defining what the crime is. The federal anti-narcotic statute involves a schedule of different kinds of drugs, and it gives the Federal Drug Enforcement Agency the ability to enforce the laws dealing with those scheduled drugs. Now, you know that the Congress of the United States has kind of pulled an Amanda Shelton term of art. And I don't remember the name of the last member of the House of Representatives that sponsored a resolution, but there was a gentleman from Orange County named Dana Rohrabacher whose name was attached to it at one time. And these statutes went through Congress annually or biannually that disallowed the Drug Enforcement Administration and the Federal Bureau of Investigation from using any federal money to enforce narcotics laws in states in which those narcotics were legal. If you follow that kind of circuit.
I do. I didn't know that. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that circuitous path. So I see I see some congressmen who are really chickens here, because rather than come out and address the question head on and just repeal the federal prohibition against certain uses of marijuana, they dance around it in that manner. So they're able to tell the folks back home, no, I'm not going to repeal any of that marijuana legislation.
I'm just going to defund it.
Yeah. Now, you folks back there who are smoking and joking and not paying much attention to what I'm saying because you're too high, when you find out that I was here, someone will tell you that I did introduce a bill in Congress to not fund enforcement of that marijuana bill. So I don't want anybody to say that I'm hypocritical. It's just that I'm seeing both sides of the issue.
Well, I'm a little concerned about this because, next week, I'm assuming people are still going to be importing these birds. And if I improve this importation, am I also a party to that? These importation documents, they don't say fighting cocks. It says brood fowl. And so I'm getting no guidance of any kind as to how we're going to handle this. So I'm hoping for some. I'm a little worried about this.
Yeah, I can understand that. Well, and this is the failure, again, of Amanda Shelton and Sabina Paris with, they're doing a great job of posturing and grandstanding, but they should have been concerning themselves with this sort of thing from the beginning. Like our governor said, I'm not approving any more permits for cockfights. So one would have thought that we've had a year to prepare for this, and we have an attorney general, the legislature has counsel, the governor has counsel, that someone might have sat down and said, what issues are we going to have to confront in the face of this new federal ban on cockfighting? Instead of saying, it's part of our culture, we don't like it, and come and get us, you guys.
Well, Judge, I'm very grateful. I've always been curious about this marijuana thing, and now I understand that how they went around that. That's fascinating. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. And I've pointed out on the program before that, you know, people say, well, are they going to send somebody out here to enforce it? And my answer to that is those folks are already here. The Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Drug Enforcement Administration. I've been to cockfights, and I kind of share Jimmy's view of the whole thing. But at the cockfight, you'll find huge amounts of cash changing hands without any record at all. It may very well that drug deals go down there. There could be money laundering going on. So this would seem to be a target-rich environment for both the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Drug Enforcement Administration. As far as... Go ahead, Tom.
I'm sorry for interrupting. If I could share one anecdote. Now, this was 7 or 8 years ago, but I was doing relief work for one of the local veterinarians who had gone off island for a trip, and I was working a Saturday for him. And a man came in with a rooster with a broken leg and was telling me how important it was for me to repair this bird's leg. And he said, Dr. Poole, I want you to understand that money is no object, because bird bones are pretty difficult to repair. I've tried many times, and I was telling him about that, and he said, money is no object. He said, I don't know what you consider expensive, Dr. Poole, but if you think I'm going to be impressed by a bill of $20,000, I'm not. He said, this bird bought my house, and he said, I've got to save this bird. So, I mean, I still can't wrap my brain around that, how one chicken could have bought his house. But he was absolutely sincere that money was no object in the repair of that bird's leg.
Sure. No, it's things like this that I think that most people don't understand about cockfighting. Most people, I think, really don't have much of an interest or knowledge about cockfighting. But that's a pretty interesting story.
Thank you, Judge, very much.
Thanks for calling in, Tom.
Yes, sir. Bye.
So, yeah, you don't hear people speaking out against it unless it's, you know, some out of town Jasper in a pinchback suit coming in here to, you know, on the heels of some lobbying efforts to try to end a particular form of cruelty to animals on Guam. And you don't find very many local people speaking up against it. And I think probably I could explain that in a couple of ways. One, most people don't know much about cockfighting. They heard about it. They know, you know, they know people who do it, but they don't go to the cockfight. They don't follow cockfighting like maybe they follow professional football or basketball. And then the second thing is the kind of what I would refer to as the home team effect. And that is that people are ordinarily very careful about not rooting for the home team. As an example, if I were to move to Green Bay, Wisconsin, I wouldn't be stupid enough to walk around and say, I don't like professional football, and I think the Green Bay Packers are a bunch of slugs. That would not be the right thing to say. So even if I don't follow professional football, and even if I'm not a Green Bay Packer fan, I'm kind of going to go along with it when people come along with hey, how about them Packers? You know, give them a thumbs up, right? So I think there's some of that, because I think a lot of, you know, most of the people here sense that although they're not interested in cockfighting, there's a small but very vocal group that is, who would not look kindly upon them if they spoke out against cockfighting. So before the break, I talked about the idea, what do you do, or what is society's proper reaction when something is deeply embedded in what we'll call the culture without taking the time to define culture, which is more than one program. What do you do when that comes along and someone challenges it? I think the first thing you have to do is ask, well, is it really part of the culture? And that's why I thought that survey was so telling. The survey says that really there is not this public outpouring of support for cockfighting. So if it's part of the culture, perhaps it's part of the culture because it's tolerated by a large number of people and advanced by a small number of people. And then I went from there to the idea of meritocracy. So often what we talk about here on Tall Tales is meritocracy in the government of Guam, or lack thereof. We're saying, wow, we just don't have the kind of government officials to do the job the way we think it should be done. Are we hiring the best people on island to do the job? And if you are one who says, I want to see the best people get those jobs, I don't care who they are, I don't care who their family is, I don't care where they came from, I just want merit in those jobs. That would be a meritocratic approach. But then on the other side is we have strong senses of family here. And I know of situations where a person had the ability to fill a position in the government of Guam and didn't give that job to a family member, not close enough to be nepotism, but close enough to be considered a family member, and didn't give the job to the family member, and that person was roundly criticized by the family because I was about to use either he or she, but I caught myself in time, Real Joe Cruz.
Nice.
That person was roundly criticized because they didn't give the family member the job when they had the ability to do it. They gave it to someone else. So ask yourself, is this one of the conflicts that we deal with here fairly regularly where, we live in a very small town? Perhaps one of the greatest points of interest when anyone's name is mentioned is, okay, well, what the Haji Familianya Haji Natatanya Umasaka. And, everybody wants to find out, or people want to find out what I consider kind of that person's address. Address meaning where that person fits into the total scheme of things on the island. Which of the larger families is he a part of? How about his wife or husband, in-laws, et cetera, et cetera. And I suspect that this is driven by more than just idle curiosity. I suspect, and I'm only theorizing here, I suspect that people are interested in that because they want to make a calculation of where that person's loyalties would lie if he were in a position to exercise any form of discretion. Now, if my thesis is correct, is it okay? Is it part of the culture? Is it something that's been going on ever since? And if people can't understand how it works, that's their problem? Or is it something that is not going to work very well in the 21st century when there are those who advance the idea that meritocracy should be the governing principle in any organization at all, certainly the government. So I see this controversy over cockfighting as involving very, very similar considerations. If the majority of the people are against cockfighting, as the survey that I read you said, and only a small minority are for it, should we let it go because we've been doing it for a long time, and it's part of the culture. Tough question. And if anybody wanted to post on Facebook on that particular question, I would probably be looking for those comments with great interest. If anyone wanted to call 888-8255, it would make a nice phone call. Now, of course, what I referred to earlier as the home team effect might serve as a discouraging factor from people calling up and speaking their minds on meritocracy versus familia, or no cockfighting versus, or no cruelty to animals versus cockfighting. But it's when we bring these things out and talk about them that we function a little bit better as a community. And when I used to do the read-in for Tall Tales, which I probably ought to do again on Monday, I pointed out that the purpose of Tall Tales is not to avoid controversy. The purpose of Tall Tales is to search out controversy and put it up on the skyline, and to engage in discussion about it. And we should argue about these things, and we should have disputes. We should try to argue without being argumentative, if we can, but to passively go along with things for which we can't support is perhaps not the best way for a society to function. Jimmy's got back in line again and got his third ticket, real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, Jimmy, get on the Ferris wheel for the third time here.
Oh, Lord. Oh,
we got two Jimmys again. Three Jimmys.
Yeah, I got a cheap Chinese radio here.
Oh, okay, Jimmy.
I had a couple of them, but they got stolen. The Micronesians.
Well, the demand for the demand for Tall Tales is so great that if you have anybody out there that has an FM radio, I would keep it under lock and key when I wasn't listening to the point with it, because the demand is so great.
Really? Is that what you would do?
Absolutely.
How do you keep yourself from being ripped off and robbed and stolen from?
Clean living and a clear conscience, Jimmy.
Well, I got that.
Okay. So what can you tell me?
Something needs to be done about the thieving. The purse snatchers.
Okay.
There's a lot of purse snatchers on Guam, and most of them come from some Causeway or Palau. Okay. I'll tell you true facts. True story. I paid a guy to come and, his name's Ken from Palau. I paid him $200 to come and clean the driveway. And then he said, I want to borrow your chainsaw. And then the battery of the truck, a little weak. He said, okay, I'll charge it. So he walked off, this Kim from Palau. Walked off with my battery, walked off with my chainsaw, and doesn't answer his phone. So I think I've been ripped off by Micronesian from Palau.
Well, if he's listening, Jimmy, here's a message. Ken from Palau, give Jimmy back his chainsaw and his battery.
Yeah, the battery cost $102. I had to spend another $119. And the chainsaw You know, I'm old and I'm weak and I couldn't even start the damn thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, enough. Okay, I'm 68 years old.
Okay, Jimmy, I hear you.
Oh, what you going to do?
I already announced that I already asked Ken to bring the chainsaw and the battery back.
I
And
won't listen to you.
he won't listen to me?
No, he's plowing.
Well, I suspect that there are Palauans as part of my international radio listening audience, Jimmy.
I just want my chainsaw back, even though I'm not strong enough to start the damn thing. You know, you fucking microneedle. Okay, you want me to start telling you all the things the microneedles have stolen from me?
I don't think so, Jimmy.
It'd take a long time.
Yeah.
More than your 4 hours or how many hours?
Yeah. I want to get back to
Anyway.
I want to get back to cockfighting, Jimmy, and you've already ridden on the Ferris wheel 3 times today, so.
Well, I'm sorry, but if those Filipinos, the P words and the F words, love their cockfighting, there is a God. There is a God.
Okay, Jimmy.
It's not Aperon's God.
You've already ruled on the question, Jimmy, and I've broadcast your ruling. So thanks a lot for calling. I think I got another call coming in.
Sorry to bother you.
Thank you. So I did get one taker here, Just Castro Jasongas, who I think is calling or is Facebooking from Brownsville, Texas, and he's got an interesting comment here. And let's see, I've got Francis on the line, so we're going to break for the 7th inning stretch, and then we're going to come back to Francis and then Gus Jasongas, talking a little bit more about cockfighting today.
A diamond ring turns into a black pearl and hangs shimmering in the sky.
Join 93.3 The Point for a spectacular celestial event. On the evening of December 26th, a rare solar eclipse will take place just before sunset.
We see the sun's atmosphere, normally not visible.
Most of the sun will be blocked during the eclipse, leaving only a ring of fire visible, and we have the best seats and the safest way to watch it.
It's one of the great wonders of the solar system.
Join us at the Point Coffee Lounge at the Sheraton Laguna Guam Resort from 4 to 6 p.m. on December 26th. The first 100 guests will receive a pair of Eclipse viewing glasses, a complimentary glass of iced tea, and a coupon good for discounts at Sheraton's Surfers Point Bar or La Cascada Buffet Restaurant. Join us for the Point's 2019 Eclipse Viewing Party, December 26th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the beautiful Sheraton Laguna Guam Resort. Brought to you in part by Sheraton Laguna Guam Resort, Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, and your sky-watching friends at 93.3 The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla. Try their feature special for December. Seafood Lao Lao, a medley of salmon, shrimp, scallops, and fresh spinach wrapped in tea leaves. Steamed to order, topped with soy butter sauce and your choice of starch. Visit Mezcla in Agotya and now in Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
Center field bleachers, Wrigley Field, Chicago, the 7th inning stretch. That means I've only got 2 more innings of Tall Tales for today. And I'm going to start out here talking with my old friend Francis. Good afternoon, Francis.
Good afternoon, Uncle. How you doing, man?
Doing really well.
How's that cough? It sounds better, but
Yeah, I think I've been leaving the cough at home when I come down here to the station, and the cough just has to stay home by itself. So it's working out pretty well.
all right. I to your advice and stayed kind of far away from the speaker, so I guess we're going to be all right.
Yeah, I think so.
This cockfighting prohibition, this came from the national government. I saw that thing in Florida and even in the Glades, man. I saw that all over the southern states. I just don't know what to say except we're just going to probably have to conform with this unless our elected leaders have something else to say about it. But I really don't have any comments other than I respect a lot of the opinions that's coming out from all the game people, you know. But I have a funny feeling that if we do not comply, there's going to be that non-conformity, the non-compliance thing, that we're going to get hit with a really big fine if we lose this one again.
Well, the individual cockers are the guys that are at risk. I mean, if you're a gambler and you want to give it a shot, when obviously the cockpit licensing board is not going to license your cockfight, the governor won't give you a permit. All you've got is Sabina Paris and Amanda Shelton posturing on your behavior. If the feds bust you, I don't think they're going to come down and bail you out.
Yep, there's that spirit, man. There's that Bob Klitzkie spirit, and I'm very thankful. I'm kind of like going to make my weekend. So, thank you, Uncle. And I really don't have that much other than that non-compliance. I guess our elected leaders are going to be the last ones to call this shot. So, but with all respect, still the opinions and concerns from the professional. What do you call them? Cockers?
Yeah. Man Gadinero, eh?
Hey, it's a Jiggle Day word. Gadinero, they even have a road up there.
Gadinero Road, yep.
Uh-huh. Other than that, a friend of mine told me that maybe we can, get rid of the knives and put boxing gloves on the cocks, and maybe we can have fun with that and have judges. Maybe you be one of them. You know those.
I'd be perfect for the job, Francis.
Thank you, Uncle. You have a wonderful weekend, and we're very close to celebrating that cumpleaños, that birthday. So I'm going to try my best to be. And my heart goes out to Jimmy. I feel bad. I belong to a very large Palawan, Palawan Chamorro family, and they're all becoming very professionals, very serious about their kids' education and employment, engaging in commerce and business and all that. But I really feel bad because this is the first time I've heard Palawan. But if the Palawan community were listening, they'd probably get back to Jimmy and take care of this issue, because I really feel sad for him, and he's a good man. I love you, man. The holidays are coming around, so we'll be talking again.
Okay.
Thank you, Uncle.
Feliz Pascual, eh?
To you as well, Dani familia mo. Respeto por algo, eh?
Okay.
Estás desmaciado, Dios.
Okay, so call from Francis talking about cockfighting, and I have a post here from Gus Jasongas that I want to deal with a little bit. Unfortunately, when you post on Facebook and I read it, I kind of get the last word, so there's a certain danger in laying it out there unless you're willing to do it back and forth. So I will try to advance such arguments as Gus puts forth, as well as my own take on what he says. And Gus Castro Jasongas, who I think is posting from Brownsville, Texas, a place that used to have its own amount of cockfighting, by the way. Gus says, I believe cockfighting is a cultural diversity. Cockfighters invest in their birds just as those who breed horses to compete in Derby for millions in prizes. Well, I don't know about the cultural diversity, but judging from Tom Poole's call, yeah, cockfighters do invest in their birds. Tom told us a really interesting story about a person with a fighting cock with a broken leg. Said, if you got to charge me $20,000 to fix that broken leg, it's okay. So that's true. And I'm going to divert for a second here and go back to our local government. Now, you heard the dilemma that Tom Poole finds himself in, because as a territorial veterinarian, he has to approve the importation of animals like chickens. So he's asking, what do I do? Do I make sure that these are not cockfighting roosters before I approve? Do I take the declarations at face value and approve? If I approve and I'm outside the law, am I complicit in the importation of cockfighting birds? These are all things that our local government should have been thinking about during the last year. The feds gave us a year to prepare for this. And they're, instead of the posturing, the grandstanding and the showboating and the Amanda Sheltoning and the Sabina Parising, a couple new verbs there, we should have been thinking about the consequences that are going to befall our local government and people on the island when this happens. As an example, what about people who on the 20th of December find themselves with large flocks of fighting cocks? What are they supposed to do with those fighting cocks? Turn them loose? Take them to the butcher shop? I don't think anybody would want to eat a fighting cock, because I understand that they're dosed with antibiotics and steroids, probably not very good eating, not exactly organic. How about those that have the implements of cockfighting, the knives and the picks and things like that? What happens to them? How about folks who perhaps ordered birds from somewhere else and those birds are in transit not to arrive until after the 20th of December? A responsible government would have gotten into all of these things. Sounds like the only responsible people in the government are a guy, Earl Garrido, who was the chairman of the cockpit board and resigned. Said, I'm not going to do this anymore. It's illegal. But we had the showboaters and the grandstanders and the panderers come forward instead of people who would respond in a responsible fashion when something comes along that they can't change, and you're going to have to just kind of deal with it instead of dealing with it, instead of substituting bluster for good government. This takes us back to this idea of meritocracy, doesn't it? So yeah, Gus, cockfighters invest in their birds, and anyone who invested before December 20th last year, even hard-hearted Bob on here in Tall Tales would say, yeah, I kind of feel sorry for those guys because they invested money to participate in something that was in a legal investment. And all of a sudden now it's not all of a sudden, but a year later it's illegal. I don't know what the lifespan of a fighting cock is. I don't know the economics of it all, but anyone who in good faith invested money a year ago and gets stung by it, yeah, I feel kind of bad. Anybody who invested in birds after December 20 last year, what can I say? You knew the rules had changed and you did it anyhow. That's the way it goes, you know. And then the second part of what Gus says is this. He said, cockfighters invest in their birds just as those who breed horses to compete in the Derby for millions in prizes. Well, that's true. Racehorses, that's a big money sport. And good racehorses sell for large amounts of money, even after their racing days are over, when they're put out to stud. And the purses for some of these races can be quite large. And what is it? The first Saturday in May, Kentucky Derby time. The whole country turns its attention to Kentucky Derby. Even Tall Tales celebrates Kentucky Derby every day. So let's see what's the difference then between a cockfighter investing money in fighting cocks as opposed to horse race entrepreneurs investing their money in horses. Well, the obvious one is this. When you hear the call to the post and that bell rings and the chute's open and the horses take off at the start of the race, the horse's object is not to kill other horses in the race. In fact, it's just the opposite. It's to run faster than the other horses in the race. So horses don't get killed in the process of horse racing. And people who go to the racetracks to bet, I've done that. It's not, I didn't think it was very much fun. I've done it just to kind of see what it was like. But people who go to horse races to bet on horses don't bet on which horse is going to kill the other horse. So kind of an obvious difference there, Gus Jasongas. Well, I hear what you're saying, that the fact that people invest money in cockfighting ought to be thought over. And then Gus goes on to say cockfighting gambling is quite different from casino gambling. Well, yeah, it is. And once again, casino gambling, and by the way, casino gambling is things like blackjack, craps, baccarat, roulette. Going to a casino and stuffing money in a slot machine is not gambling. Going to a casino and stuffing money in a slot machine is just a drawn-out operation to contribute to the wealth of the owners of the casino. The odds are against you. The casino never loses. The casino that operates the slot machines never loses. But casino gambling, roulette, blackjack, craps, etc., yeah, it's different from cockfight gambling because none of those forms of gambling depend on the dealer getting killed or the players getting killed or anyone else getting killed. That kind of as you were casino gambling depends on the turn of the card or the spin of a wheel or the roll of a dice. So you're absolutely right. It is totally different, Gus, but I don't know how that helps us working with this particular question. But anyhow, I'm really glad you chimed in and spoke up. And I see you here on Facebook every day. Let's see, in Brownsville right now, it's got to be 1 o'clock in the morning, right, Gus? Or 2 o'clock in the morning. Let's see. Pacific is 11:45. Mountain is it's got to be 1:45 in the morning. So I really admire your dedication, Gus, for staying up so late to listen to Tall Tale. I know it's worth it. And of course, everybody else out there in our international radio listening audience knows that it's worth it. But thank you very much. And here's Gus's final remark. Thanks, Bob. I figured getting a conversation would shine some light, which you did. No killing on my part. Laughing out loud. Okay, Gus, nice talking to you here on Facebook. And now we got somebody on. I hope it's not Jimmy. No, it's not Jimmy. All right. It's John. Good afternoon, John.
Bob, welcome back.
It's good to be home, John.
Anyways, it's legal to kill babies, but illegal to kill the chicken.
That's the long and short of it.
I just don't understand that. And I heard you mention Sabina Perez supporting the cockfighters.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can't believe her.
Yeah,
she just wants to ban everything.
Well, she has this 37-page dealing with cruelty to animals, and it's really a hard-hitting bill. It could, if you are cruel to an animal, you could be arrested, tried, fined, incarcerated, and when you got out of jail, you might be subject to mental counseling.
Yeah, she also she's trying to pass one to also stop scuba fishing.
Right.
It's going to be illegal to kill fish as well. If you're breathing.
So she's 100%. She's four square on this idea: no cruelty to animals, except for one thing: cockfighting's okay. That's all right.
How about babies? It's okay to kill babies.
Yeah.
I just don't understand that.
Yeah, it's a sad thing, isn't it, John?
Merry Christmas, Bob.
Same to you, John. Thanks a lot for calling.
God bless.
God bless. And Gus Jasanga says 2 a.m. Now, talk about dedication, everybody out there in the international radio listening audience. It's almost 2 a.m. in Brownsville, and Gus Jasangas is here chatting with me on Facebook. Okay, and then another post on the subject of cockfights from Sherry Iriarte. The cocks fight naturally, but man is the one who wants to see blood by adding the blades. Interesting, yeah. A blood sport. Well, thanks for chiming in with that one, Sherry. Okay, anybody else got anything to say about cockfighting? I as you might gather, I'm just fascinated by this whole subject and some of the reactions to the questions involved. And then, of course, the fact that this is such a multifaceted issue. There are so many different ways of looking at it. Good talk radio, I think. Okay, let me go back to the card and see what I got next here. It's, this is the one the real Joe Cruz has been waiting for. And by the way, I was looking at Facebook, and there is a person named Joe Cruz on Facebook who holds himself out as the real Joe Cruz.
Yeah, that's a fake real.
A fake real Joe Cruz.
Yeah, a fox.
A faux real Joe Cruz. Ersatz real Joe Cruz.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Counterfeit real Joe Cruz.
Yes, sir.
How many real Joe Cruz? There could only
Ungenuine.
There can only be one real Joe Cruz, right?
That's true, sir.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm kind of thankful for that, too. Okay, so here we are. Next item on the card, pot versus traffic safety. Yeah. All right. Car crashes soaring in pot legal states. If you think that DWH, which means driving while high, is harmless, you might want to think again. 2 recent studies have concluded that car crashes tend to increase after states legalize marijuana. The Highway Loss Data Institute found that collision insurance claims increased by 6% in Colorado, Oregon, and Washington, the first 3 states to legalize marijuana, compared with neighboring states that hadn't legalized pot. Researchers at the Institute for Highway Safety also limited their study to those 3 states, looking at police-reported incidents, and found a 5.2% increase. Well, those somewhat scary statistics should probably guide your thinking on whether you should be driving stoned. You might take a bit of heart from another study in 2000. Okay, so we're talking about horse racing here. We're coming up to Kentucky Derby time. So I'm going to hold off until after that, and then we'll finish up with the high point of the show, so to speak, real Joe Cruz.
Cocoa Coffee Company is now available at Circle K. Single origin coffee beans carefully sourced and locally roasted to give you the freshest cup of coffee Guam has to offer. Grab a cup that's brewed every 30 minutes or purchase a bag of the locally roasted whole beans. Flavors now serving: light medium roasted Ethiopia and medium dark roasted Jamaican Blue Mountain. Exclusively available at Circle K. With every Cocoa Coffee Company purchase, a portion of the proceeds will go towards the Cocoa Recovery Program.
Want to grow your business? Start a new venture? Or stay ahead of the competition? You can. With Docomo Pacific Smart Business Solutions tailored to your specific needs and ambitions, you can do it all. Partner with a network with best-in-class network coverage, state-of-the-art communication platforms, and a team dedicated to providing you with premium support. Call 688-2677 to start your journey to success today. Docomo Pacific Business, delivering your future today.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So here we are. That was the call to the post at Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. Every day is Kentucky Derby Day here on Tall Tales. I suppose I ought to have the real Joe Cruz come up with some rooster crowing, so for one of the breaks we could have the beginning of a cockfight. I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't do that, real Joe Cruz, because maybe the feds will get us if they heard that. One of the posters on Facebook said that she heard that when you did it earlier, and her dogs thought the chickens were out in the yard. A little deception plan there. Okay, back to pot and driving. In 2017, the American Journal of Public Health looked at the impact of legalized marijuana on auto fatality rates and found no connection, which sounds counterintuitive until you read an explanation like the one in the National Transportation Safety Board provided to Congress in 2017. Summarizing several state studies, NTSB said, quote, after smoking marijuana, subjects typically drive slower and follow other cars at greater distance and take fewer risks than when sober. In contrast, subjects dosed with alcohol typically drive faster, follow at closer distances, and take greater risks. Well, what do you think of that, real Joe Cruz?
I'm not sure, sir.
The consensus thus far, then, is that stoned drivers might be causing more accidents, but not necessarily the worse accidents. It does seem clear, though, that pot-smoking drivers aren't taking things seriously enough. I don't know. I don't have first-hand knowledge, but isn't that the reason people smoke pot in the first place? So they don't have to take things seriously? Yeah. That's kind of what I thought. A 2016 survey of drivers in Colorado and Washington who had used marijuana in the previous month found that 44% of them reported driving while high. Some states have launched public education initiatives to discourage driving while high on pot. In Colorado, for instance, the State Department of Transportation introduced the Cannabis Conversation, a statewide traffic safety campaign. Perhaps public education campaigns will reduce the numbers of impaired drivers on our highways, thus making the job of police a bit easier. But the police will still be stuck with the difficult job of determining when, exactly, someone is too stoned to drive. Unlike standard breath tests that can determine when someone has drunk too much booze, which are easy to administer and considered generally reliable, the way you measure pot in the system is with a blood draw. This is problematic for two reasons. A roadside blood draw to detect THC levels from pot is difficult to administer and unreliable. It also requires a search warrant if the driver refuses to consent to the draw. Somehow, you know, my kind of civil libertarian principles are offended. I can't imagine someone getting pulled over and a cop sticking a needle in his arm to draw blood. Unlike blood alcohol levels, THC levels in blood can be extremely misleading because after THC remains in the bloodstream because THC remains in the bloodstream long after its effects wear off. Now, from what I've read, the metabolites of THC remain in the bloodstream for 30 days. And that's what most of the drug tests detect, not a sort of an ambient level of THC in the blood, but the products of the metabolism of the THC. A person could easily be driving in an unimpaired state and still test for positive for the pot they smoked a week ago. Well, fine, they shouldn't be smoking pot in the first place then, right, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
If they're going to smoke pot, they just shouldn't drive at all.
They should stay home.
Isn't that what you've been saying all
Should take
along?
in the privacy of their own homes.
I forgot about that, yeah. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, in about 1 minute, I will be able to leave the studio here and enjoy myself in the privacy of my own home. I can cough to my heart's content.
That would be sweet, sir.
Yeah. So some states have set thresholds on THC blood levels to determine when someone is too high on pot. But defendants have been successful in arguing that they were not impaired. So I'm going to leave this article on something of a high note, so to speak, and leave the program on a high note. It's been a real pleasure coming into your homes and on your radios and your Facebook today. Looking forward to doing it again on Monday. So, adios. Hasta otro viaje.